Be like your Father in heaven. Wait. Stand at the door, knocking, and wait for them to come. And then when they are ready, God is working with them. God has them in his hands. When that child comes back, when they finally crack that door open and the possibility of reconnection is there, will you be the same person? Because that's what they had to leave. So the answer is becoming your best self.
That's the voice of Marit Welker, whose life experiences plus study of the brain has placed her in a position of helping mothers who have become estranged from their children. This podcast emerged from my February podcast with Ashley Kincaid, who shared a strategy for reconnecting when children and parents have become estranged. Welker reached out to me wanting to share additional thoughts from the parental viewpoint, and I said yes. In this episode, I'll ask Welker about her own experiences with estrangement, why 1 in 4 Americans is estranged from a family member, and her advice for parents waiting for a child to reconnect. I'm Cecil Taylor of Cecil Taylor Ministries, teaching Christians how to live a 7-day practical faith. Everything I do, whether blogs, books, videos, or this podcast, is about taking our faith from Sunday into the rest of the week, applying scripture and faith to life situations. I'm also interested in children and parents, as I've written a book entitled Unison Parenting, the Comprehensive Guide to Navigating Christian Parenthood with One Voice. Find more about the book in the podcast notes, as well as much more about my overall ministry and how it can help you. In the Practical Faith Academy podcast, I add other voices with other life experiences to understand how they put faith into practice. Please subscribe to my podcast according to your listening platform's instructions. I welcome your comments and your sharing of this podcast with others. Marit Welker has lived on both sides of family estrangement. As an adult child, she emotionally rejected her mother. More recently, her son stopped contact with her. From those experiences, Marit suggests a way forward with your life when you're in a similar situation. I'm interested to hear about it today. Marit, thank you for appearing on the Practical Faith Academy. I know you as a woman of faith, and one of the things of my ministry, my main mission is to teach Christians how to live a 7-day practical faith. When I say 7-day practical faith, what does that mean to you?
It means your religion is not something you think about or go to church once a week, but it's something you live all day, every day. It's something that permeates every aspect of your life. That's what faith should be.
Yeah,
To me, that's what real faith is.
I love the word permeate. When you think about permeate, what are you thinking there when you say permeate?
I think the gospel of Jesus Christ should weave its way through every inch of your life, through every aspect of your life, that it becomes a part of your profession and how you practice your profession, that it becomes a part of your social interactions, that it impacts your viewing on the internet and on media, and also that it impacts your choice of friends and how you interact, and certainly, most of all, that it impacts your home, that your home is filled with the Savior, not just on Sundays, but that, there's images on the wall and you're listening to uplifting music within your home. To me, that's what it is to have this be a part of who you are and how you live.
Thank you. You reached out to me after hearing my podcast with Ashley Kincaid on estrangement, and your approach focuses on helping mothers whose children have gone no contact. Why do you feel this is an important topic to share?
Oh, goodness. Okay. God created the family. To see it being torn apart through social media, through politics, through sexuality, through all of the important voices online, the influencers, people as powerful as Oprah and Mel Robbins and things. I do believe in family estrangement, 100% in certain cases. And I do believe in boundaries. I think they're very healthy in most cases, depending what the boundary is. But estrangement because of discomfort and because of pain that can be worked through. Fixing relationships, that requires work and sacrifice and humility. And there's such a trend now saying, lose your parents, find your life. People going no contact. And most of them not even explaining the real reason why to their parents. Most of them are unable to explain why to their parents. But in many cases, that's because there's outside pain that's being compiled with it. And together, that's the reason why their parents are so evil. It's heartbreaking. Families are being destroyed in this state of individuality that has that dominates the world now. We are filling our lives with me first in everything, as a society, and to me that spells the extinction of mankind. Families don't happen without a whole bunch of sacrifice and years of work, a lifetime commitment. And until 150 years ago, that was just a given. We were a primarily agrarian society, and families lived together and worked together in that way. But with all the changes that have happened, with all the prosperity we enjoy, things have changed little by little through the years until we are completely filled with selfishness. To me, that's what this individualism is about. This movement of me first, and I have to take care of me first. Well, we do, but that just spells incredible emptiness and sadness. It's in service that we find ourselves. If we are busy in serving others, in rejoicing in Christ and living in gratitude, those are the three skills that bring us happiness. But it's not a matter of making a list of gratitude. It's a matter of living in gratitude. And those things are not something that a selfish person who's trying to put themselves first is ever going to be able to do, and they will never find happiness. I'm not saying that this is the case for cases of true abuse ever. However, the definition of abuse has shifted through the years. It's transitioned, and it encapsulates much more than it used to. So instead of just having abuse be something where a person is in danger, it's become something that envelops, I was uncomfortable. You made me sad, which no one can make anyone feel anything. It's all internal.
You had something in there that I think is really important regarding fixing relationships, because you said that people will avoid the hard work of
Yes,
fixing relationships. And so, part of that may be skill, part of that may be will. Are we too lazy to do it, or do we not know how to do it? What's your thought on why we avoid that hard work of fixing relationships?
that would depend on every individual case. Um, I'm going to say one thing, this caveat here, and this is really crucial, is that um, my experience is that every single individual who pulls away from their parent is experiencing pain. And usually it's very strong pain. And it's never something that just happened all of a sudden. It's always something that's grown over time, even if you've heard no signs of it whatsoever. Most of these children are leaving without saying why to their parents clearly. And many of them just ghost their parents. They just disappear. No word. They might even move and they just go away. But as far as fixing the relationship, again, that's very much per individual situation. But I think many of them don't have the hope that it can be fixed, or that they need to stay around to help fix it. They don't take the responsibility for being half of that situation. I do believe in most cases there's some selfishness on both parts, the parents and the child.
I'd like to break from the discussion to share some exciting news with you. I've just released a set of low-priced companion products to my book, Unison Parenting, on unisonfamily.com. These mini products, ranging from $3 to $10, zero in on a specific parenting issue. For example, the surefire way to get your teen to talk to you extracts a golden nugget from Unison Parenting, a proven way to open up teen conversation. I tested it with my parenting classes over the course of a decade. Another of the products is The First Thing Parents Should Do, which is a deep dive into their families of origin. We carry so many hidden assumptions into our adulthood, and they can crop up and cause problems in our parenting and our marriage. This tool allows you to describe and discuss your growing up families together and get ahead of those kinds of problems. Check them out by visiting unisonfamily.com and clicking on Companion Products. Continuing our conversation now with Marit Welker, and before we get to your success story of reconnecting with your son, I want to spend some time in the dark when you and other mothers are cut off. And when we first connected about this podcast, I found it compelling that you focus first not on helping mothers get their child back, but on finding peace and growing instead of simply surviving. So explain the approach that you share with mothers based on your own experience.
Well, in my coaching and in my course, the emphasis is on reconnection, and that reconnection, acting the way that we should, the way that the prodigal son's father acted. He didn't send his servants after to drag his son home. He didn't say, no, I'm not going to give you your money. He let him go. And that's what we need to do. Anything else we do, reaching out, begging, apologizing, all of that is wrong and will only damage the situation. It communicates to the child. It is evidence that, look, she's apologizing, you see. That's how toxic she is. It's all evidence against the parent in the child's mind, because the child's mind has decided how things are. And that's something I really emphasize: neuroscience and personal growth, personal development. And what's interesting is the way the brain actually is designed to function is to protect us from problems. And it does that by focusing on the negative. Each time we have a thought, it will start a new neural pathway. And if we have a second one, it becomes a stronger pathway. We think it a third time, we think it a fourth time, etc. It becomes normal. And after a while, it's comfortable because we had that thought so much, it feels like truth. And that doesn't mean that a thought is a fact. And so that's something we need to figure out is that this is not necessarily a fact. It's what I've been thinking. And that's what's happening with our children, but it's also happening with us. And so learning to retrain our brain requires daily habits that help us to differentiate between thought and fact and help us to understand what's happening. A clear example of this was that about a year ago, our family moved the dishes from one cabinet to another. And so we would go to the cupboard to pull out a plate. And every single time we would find that the plate wasn't there. And then we'd be like, uh-oh, and go to the correct cabinet. Well, we did that over and over for 2 months. After 10 years, we knew where those plates were, and we'd get there and they weren't. So we had to rethink about that every time until we got it right. Our job is to follow the example set for us by the prodigal son's father. And that is not to chase after our child, but to wait and watch and prepare, so that when that child returns, we recognize them from far off and we run to them with open arms. And our Father in heaven is the ideal example of helping his estranged children, because we are all estranged from him by sin, by death, by mortal life. As parents, we cannot fix our child. You can't do it. You can't change the thoughts in their head, and you can't change their attitudes or beliefs. You taught them correctly, I hope, but you were imperfect, but you did the best you could. So here's my words to you. Be like your Father in heaven. Wait. Stand at the door, knocking, and wait for them to come. And then when they are ready, God is working with them. God has them in his hands, and he will do what he can to help bring that about. And there is only one thing that you can do, and that is to work on yourself. Now, if they left, it was because of pain. It wasn't because of something made up and pulled out of a hat. There was pain, there was sadness inside of them, and it was causing enough pain that they felt like they had to cut you off. Was it real? In some cases, no. Most cases, there's definitely some truth, and in some cases, it was extreme abuse. I mean, it happens, it's the whole gamut. But here's the thing for you. When that child comes back, when they finally crack that door open and the possibility of reconnection is there, will you be the same person? Because that's what they had to leave. So the answer is becoming your best self. Now, I have an example close to me where a friend of mine estranged from her mother, and I'm friends with both this woman and her mother. And the mother didn't know why, and she couldn't get an answer as to why. And because of that, I guess she just felt like, well, if I didn't, if I can't get an answer to why, which is the case most of the time, and the children don't always know a clear answer to why, then what happens is the mom decided to just keep going forward. And she trusted her child to God, and she just went forward. I think things could have been sped up if there was a bigger focus on self-improvement. But that woman was truly a woman of God. And while she had her faults, my friend eventually came back. And it was glorious to see because I love them both.
Let me pause a moment to tell you about some of the options I provide for increasing your daily practice of faith. They fall into two categories: options for your own study and options for group study. You can find both at ceciltaylorministries.com by clicking on Instant Content Products. My books and study guides help you chart an individual path to deepening your faith. My small group video studies and related guides allow you and others to journey together, discussing and implementing new concepts I propose. Let me share one option for living out your faith as Jesus calls you. It's entitled From Comfort Zone to Trust Zone. In it, I share a dozen Bible stories of Jesus challenging people to take leaps of faith for his kingdom. Then, I map those stories to today and how Jesus invites us into risky territory as well. When you take risks for Christ, you'll find your trust grows because Jesus is right there with you. If you've listened to this podcast and never really explored what I offer, please check out ceciltaylorministries.com to find ways to make your faith real each day. So, Marit, how did you and your son rebuild your relationship?
Mm. Well, we had some setbacks that pushed us together. And through those, I think eyes were opened as to what was going on, and I had changed. I think he had changed as well. But that's what drove us together. But it was the fact that I had worked hard to become more mature and to accept my role as spectator of his life and not a third parent. Um, I wasn't that way all the time, but I had my moments and I just would speak up. And that's just not my place. And so I learned to bridle my tongue, I guess. And in so doing, I was able to pull back. And when he was ready to open the door and crack it open, then I got to get to know my new granddaughter and spend the time with the grandsons that we had been so very close beforehand. And things really, really grew in a positive direction after that. And then right after that, they moved across the country.
Well, better to do it before they moved, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely,
Because we
yeah.
do. We FaceTime all the time, and I get to see, you know, they made ice cream. They got a new ice cream machine. And so, of course, they had to FaceTime me. And, just the little things matter.
Yeah. There's a couple of themes in there that I like to talk about in general, and I'd like to lift out and get your opinion on. One is that we need humility in order to
Mm.
change, and that is a really hard thing to do. What do you think the role of humility that was for you there?
I tend to be prideful and judgmental. Those are my sins that are my go-tos. And I work on that constantly, but clearly not hard enough. Um, but recognizing where we are with God for me and learning to surrender to Him, all of our lives, all of our universe, everything. So it is only me and Him, and nothing else matters. When I was able to do that in my life years ago, it it changed everything. And talk about humility. And I just needed to remember that and better understand my role. And once I did that, once I learned to stop taking offense and start being, um, even when offense is intended, and start being more humble in my overall perspective, then things really came together. It really made a difference.
Marit, as we wrap up, please tell our listeners how they can access your coaching and have more conversation with you.
Well, my coaching and course are found at maritwelker.com. And right now I have a program that's free for estranged mothers who are Christian, where they can come in and give it a try for 5 days and one-on-one coaching. And if they like it, then they can continue. Um, and so that's what I'm currently offering on my website, maritwelker.com. And I have a podcast called Still Here with Marit Welker. And that's just, we're still here waiting. God is still here waiting. We are estranged from our child, but not our father.
Very good. Marit, I think this was a fascinating conversation, and there were things in there that, as you were talking about them, I was going, I know people who need to hear this. I know people who are going to hear that and resonate with what you say, with what you're talking about. So thank you so much for
You're
sharing
welcome.
on the Practical Faith Academy podcast, and blessings on your podcast as well.
Thank you. It was wonderful to be here.
Between Marit and prior podcast guest Ashley Kincaid, you have a lot to ponder if you're one of the 25% of Americans with broken family relationships. Hopefully, these two podcasts can lead to growth and reconciliation in your family. The next Practical Faith Academy episode takes a completely different turn. Jazz musician Alan C. Paul visits to talk about embracing God's creative power in your life, even if you never embark on a creative career. We all possess creativity. What does it mean to walk alongside God and use our creative gifts? I talked earlier about my instant content products, and I'd really appreciate you investigating those paid options. I also offer free ways to benefit from my ministry. Subscribe to this podcast, follow Cecil Taylor Ministries on Facebook, Instagram, or Pinterest, but be sure to sign up for my free monthly newsletters, Ministry Connection and Backstage Pass. They combine practical faith tips with updates on the ministry and on my life as well. And starting this month, Backstage Pass will show you the behind-the-scenes journey as I write 2 books in 2026. Read about all these opportunities in the show notes and how you can stay in touch with my ministry. Until next time, remember, God sends you into the world every day.